when it comes to the future of World of Warcraft, we need an expansion that restores faction pride, that restores player pride, that restores game pride in many ways. Someone on Reddit actually made a very interesting point. We need the MCU Civil War. That's what World of Warcraft needs. It needs that sort of Civil War moment. I don't know how many of you have watched the Marvel Avengers Civil War. What do you consider factions though? Horde and Alliance, or specific race factions? I'm considering all of them, Andy. So here's my problem currently with World of Warcraft. I don't see myself as part of anyone. I used to be very proud of being an orc, and as a result of being an orc, I was very proud of being a horde. And as a result of being a horde, I hated the Alliance. I no longer give a shit about being an orc. I don't really know who the horde really would be at this point, and I couldn't give two fucks about the Alliance. That's not a good place to be if you want a faction-based MMO. Now, just to be clear, we do not need another BFA. BFA did a miserable job. I always get so angry whenever people point to past expansions and go, "Bro, clearly we don't need that. Look at what happened there." For example, whenever I say we need player housing, I will always have one idiot going, "Oh my god, remember garrisons? Yeah, that fucking worked. Fuck player housing." And it's like, bro, in the history of gaming anywhere, in any period of time, there has never been a worse designed system than garrisons. Never. The guy who designed garrisons should have been fired, and probably was fired, literally the day that he invented it. Garrisons is a miserable example of player housing. BFA is a miserable example of how to restore player pride in their factions, in their race, in where they are. We need an expansion that goes back to the basics. And in order to get back to those basics, we need an expansion that explores some kind of civil war. And when I say civil war, I'm not talking about the Alliance coming to help out the fucking Horde. No. I'm talking about the Alliance fighting to keep the Alliance, the Horde fighting to keep the Horde. And then, of course, as they will always do, both factions seeing some kind of in to try and take each other out, right? Because why not? There's resources everywhere. So you have these two factions fighting it out against each other, trying to get resources, but also in bitter war with one another. And here is what I actually believe to be the biggest requirement in the history of World of Warcraft ever. Faction restrictions can no longer fucking exist. Faction restrictions is the worst idea Blizzard have ever had. Ever. It's old and it should no longer exist. Give me 2 seconds. The racial restrictions that we have currently within World of Warcraft makes zero sense, and it complicates the story unnecessarily. It makes the story unnecessarily complicated. Because how many people here is Horde or Alliance but actually feel like you agree with the other faction a little bit more? Or how many people just feel a little bit disenfranchised with their faction? Factions should be based on ideological choice. That's what the end of the Civil War should be. The end of the Civil War should be, if you're a troll and you agree more with where the Alliance lands, then you join the Alliance. If you're a human, but you agree more with where the Horde lands, then you join the Horde. Now I hear a lot of people immediately going, "Bro, think about the guilds. Think about how much shit that's going to cause for the guilds." I don't care. Some of the worst decisions Blizzard have ever made was the result of Blizzard giving a fuck about destroying the game short term for a group of people. And I'll go back to things like Connected Realms. back when we had realm mergers and connected realms and sort of, you know, different battle groups being drawn up, I think every single person that is honest with themselves will agree that the thing that destroyed realm pride, so the idea of this is my realm and I am on this realm and I know people on my realm, has been connected realms. Having connected realms have meant that you don't need to give a shit about your realm because you don't know anyone on your realm. There is no realm identity anymore because the realms are connected. I remember playing on Kazakh back in the day where you knew who the fucking idiots on the realm were. You knew who the ninja looters were. You knew who the bad raid leaders were, who the bad raiders were. You just knew it because, well, you played with these people almost every single fucking day. So how could you not know? Blizzard decided to do realm connections where the realms would simply now be connected and they would be sort of cross realm because they thought if we, and I remember them actually saying it in a blue post at the time, the reason they can't merge these realms, right? The reason they couldn't merge these realms was because they didn't want to destroy like player names and server economies, because it would have had a very negative impact for a short time on server economies. And then they said, well, and also player names. So if you have a name and someone else on your server, the server that merges with you has your same name, then you're gonna lose your name, because what are we gonna do? The problem is cross-realm have led to so many other fucking problems, right? So many other problems. LFR, looking for group, all of these systems were implemented to fix other problems that Blizzard themselves have created. These problems were created by Blizzard, and then the fixes were applied to sort of stem the bleeding from the problems initially. They could have added surnames, of course they could have. Crash the Fool. There's so many things that they could have added if they really wanted to. Of course, they ended up not doing any of those, and they ended up going with the worst possible decision. I don't care if half of your guild decides to go to the Alliance, but you were always Horde. Because here's the thing, you will get more people into your guild. You can fix your guild. But opening up the factions to the point where people choose their faction based on what they agree or disagree with is a far better way of telling the story and treating the story than what Blizzard is currently doing. Because the way the story is presenting itself right now makes zero sense, and it leaves a lot of players who maybe like one group over another, or might have joined the Horde for one specific reason, or joined the Alliance for another specific reason. Most of us are just, we no longer remember why we joined the faction that we joined. In fact, the vast majority of people I hear, whenever they say why they joined a specific faction, had something to do with the race, not the faction, right? I chose Horde right at the beginning because I love the Horde. I love the orcs, and the orcs was sort of what the Horde was. And therefore, I joined the Horde and I fell in love with the Horde. I love all of the Horde races because of that love for the Horde. I didn't like the Alliance because the Alliance didn't represent what I believed is fun. Right? That's not how I want to play the game. That's not the group that I want to be a part of. Nowadays, whenever I talk to people and ask, can I ask how many of you here joined your faction for the faction, and how many people joined it for the race within the faction? Why are we still doing this whole faction thing that's limited to one specific faction per race? When everyone here chose it based on their race, shouldn't you be allowed to choose your race based on what you want to choose, but then later on get the opportunity to choose your faction based on what you believe? Bowman, no one can cry about false pride. I have enough evidence over the course of the last 4 years of streaming and fucking making videos that shows that people don't give a shit about faction pride. The vast majority of people don't even know what faction pride means. And this is just evidenced by the fact that so many people believe the Alliance have clean hands and the Alliance have never killed anyone. I joined it first because all my friends were Horde. Race, but I have zero loyalty to any of the factions, maybe except Revendreth. But Revendreth isn't really a faction, 6-6. Race, because I don't see a difference between factions anymore. Sandman, how you doing, bro? I'm only Alliance because of my guild. You see, my belief is that you should be able to choose the faction that you want to go to based on your personal beliefs and how it aligns best with those basically look at it as covenants without player power. If you remove the player power from covenants, how many people you would have made a different decision on the covenant that they joined? That's actually an interesting question that I want all of you. How many of you would have chosen a different covenant if there were no player power tied to the covenants? So basically, how many of you are in a covenant that you didn't originally want to be a part of? You can't remain neutral, no, because World of Warcraft is at its core a game about factions. Covenant I wanted, got lucky with player power. Blizzard has consistently gotten the Horde wrong on what it represents. Just look at how they describe it from the Pandarian perspective. I can play any of the covenants because the power for my spec is about equal, so no change. I'm in the covenant I aligned with, me, instantly. I'm Odraxis because I play an Undead Unholy DK. I would have immediately changed. You see, the thing is, that's what factions should be. No player power tied to it. You choose the faction based on the inherent story qualities that you agree with and align with within the faction. Now, in order for that to happen, obviously, you need a lot more focus placed on the storytelling of these factions and also on the beliefs of these factions. The Horde used to be bloodthirsty, warmongering, sort of savages, right? That's what we were. And that's why you joined the Horde, because we had to stand together. We had to become hard. We had to embrace war in order to survive. That needs to be reinforced. You need to have that. That needs to come back. The Alliance, again, had their loyalties and their honor. Well, not honor so much as it is loyalty, loyalty, justice, the light. This was something that was very big within the Alliance, right? The adherence to the light and to the rules, so to speak, of their sacred tenets, if you will. And these were things that set both of these factions on a path that allowed you to make a choice. Now, there's more to it, and we could probably spend an hour talking about the differences between the Horde and the Alliance of the originals. Don't want to go into all of it because it's basically a boring conversation for anyone that knows it. But at the end of the day, the factions had a reason for existing, and you made your decision on the faction that you wanted to join because you agreed or disagreed with one or the other faction. Nowadays, those reasons no longer exist, so we need something new. We need Blizzard to reassert those, but then give players the opportunity to leave that faction if they no longer agree with the new vision of said faction. How many people agree or disagree with what I just said?